In this week's Torah portion is called Vayeshev, and it means, and he settled, talking about Jacob settling in the land of Canaan, in the land of Israel. But this seems a little bit counterintuitive because if you read this week's Torah portion, Jacob is anything but settled. He goes through an entire tribulation of thinking that his son, his favorite son, Joseph, is killed. In reality, he's sold into slavery, which isn't exactly much better. And this came about, as the commentaries write, that Jacob sought to have peace and tranquility in his life. After having to deal with Esau and living with his uncle Lavan, who was terrible to him, he finally just wanted to settle down and have some peace in his life. And this angered God, so to speak, where he said, it's not good enough that I give them tranquility in the world to come. They want it in this life too. And that's when he brings about all the trials and tribulations of Joseph. So how could it be that the Torah portion is called, he's settled when he's anything but? The truth is, however, that Jacob's request for peace and tranquility was eventually granted to him, as we'll see in a few weeks, that the last 17 years of his life, he lived peacefully in the land of Egypt. But it was only when Jacob sought peace in his life that God wanted to give him a higher level, a more sublime level of peace and tranquility than he was worthy of at the time. So therefore, God sent him the ordeal of Joseph in order to elevate him, uplift him spiritually to a level where he would be able to deserve and receive that greater peace. And that's why the entire Torah portion is called Vayeshev, he settled, because here we read about the ordeals which God sent him to elevate him spiritually to a point where he could live a totally harmonious life even in this world, as well as the next. And for us as well, we have to remember and trust that everything God does is for the good. And sometimes we can't see how good it is. It explains in Kabbalah and Hasidic philosophy that if something is too high of a level of goodness for us to appreciate, it comes down as something seemingly negative. Sort of like if you're looking at the sun. If you look directly at the sun, it would be damaging to you because it's just too intense. And so only after it travels millions of miles through space and goes through the atmosphere and so forth, that then finally we can appreciate the warmth and the glow of the sun. So too, sometimes God has to put filters on the goodness in order for us to be able to appreciate it, and that we need to work on ourselves to elevate ourselves spiritually in order to be able to receive and appreciate open and revealed goodness and see how everything that happens in our lives has meaning and purpose. And even if we can't see it yet, we could recognize that eventually we will one day realize and see the goodness that God has in store for each and every one of us. Shabbat Shalom.